Hi there, and welcome to The Daily Gardener, a podcast about gardening, botanical history, and literature. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebling, and today is May 12th, and there are just 39 days until the first day of summer. Today we celebrate a woman named after Florence, Italy, and who loved flowers her entire life. We'll learn about the floral emblem of Manitoba, and we'll hear an excerpt about spring at Green Gables. We grow that garden library today with a book about the relationship between people and plants. And then we'll wrap things up with some garden limericks in honor of National Limerick Day. There once was a podcast about the garden. Just kidding. It's time for today's curated news. Today's curated news comes to us from a journalist named Genevieve Glass, writing over at beingpatient.com. It's a website for Alzheimer's news, advice, stories, and support. And last week, they shared a post called Rooting for Brain Health, the therapeutic power of horticultural therapy for dementia. A new study shows that horticultural therapy actually reduces apathy and improves cognitive functioning in people with dementia. Now, in this article, Genevieve quotes a horticultural therapist and professor from Rutgers University, and his name is Joel Flagler. Joel says, anytime a person reconnects with nature, good feelings and healing can come. He says, the plant doesn't discriminate. The plant doesn't care if the person has dementia or they're in a wheelchair. The plant is ready to respond to that person. Now, if you're wondering how the interaction between people and plants may look during a session with a horticultural therapist, Jeff gives us a little bit of insight here. He says, I will ask people, what does a plant need to survive? And they'll answer water, sunshine, and love. And then Jeff says, now we're bringing out their nurturing side. And that's nice because in a nursing facility or something of the sort, these individuals are always on the receiving end of care. And now we're making them a caretaker and we're bringing out their nurturing skills. Now we're talking about real empowerment. Jeff says that he always reminds his therapy patients that plants are alive, and so they have to be treated with mutual respect. Jeff will start out his sessions by saying, what's blooming today? Or asking something specific like, who remembers azaleas? He says, maybe someone grew that flower with their parents or grandparents. Maybe they brought their mom that flower on Mother's Day. So it's old and familiar, and suddenly they're drawn in. It's a great way to engage with people. Now, you may be wondering what Jeff would do with someone with advanced stage dementia, because they wouldn't be able to care for a plant. Well, this is where Jeff suggests crushing the leaves of rosemary or geranium and getting the person to smell the leaves, take in the fragrance, and then asking them what it brings to mind. Because the sense of smell goes straight to the brain's olfactory bulb, the smell center, and that structure in the brain connects directly to the amygdala and the hippocampus, which is where we store our emotion and memory. Now, if you would like to try to incorporate some horticultural therapy with someone that you love, remember these words from Jeff. He says, there's no wrong way, just have fun. And if you can learn anything from this study, please take away that horticultural therapy, getting people to interact with plants, is a way to help them stay connected and feel involved. So powerful. Well, if you would like to check out this article, I think it's fantastic. I love this topic. All you need to do is head on over to the listener community over at Facebook, the Daily Gardener community, and search for the word therapy. And this post will pop right up, and you can take in some more about how Jeff uses horticultural therapy to make a difference with his patients. Now, if you're not in the Facebook group for the show, please know that you are always welcome to join the group. If you'd like to join, all you need to do is head on up to the search bar in Facebook where you'd look for an old friend and type in the words Daily Gardener Community and then request to join. I'd love to meet you in the group. It's time for today's botanical history. Here's botanical history for today, May 12th. Today is the birthday of the English social reformer and founder of modern nursing, Florence Nightingale, who was born on this day, May 12th, in 1820. Florence earned the moniker the Lady with the Lamp during the Crimean War because she would make her rounds to visit wounded soldiers with a lamp during the night. Florence was named after Florence, Italy, the city where she was born. Both she and her sister each had their own garden to plant and tend. When Florence was a young girl of 13, she collected flowers with a friend, a 77-year-old botanist named Margaret Stoven. Together, they gathered and pressed over 100 different species of plants. This charming story, complete with images of their herbarium, was featured in a 2008 book by Richard Mendelsohn. Today, the flowers that Florence and Margaret collected are housed at the Natural History Museum in London. As an adult, Florence wrote, "Poetry and imagination begin life. A child will fall on its knees on the gravel walk at the sight of a pink hawthorn in full flower to praise God for it." As a nurse, Florence believed flowers helped with the morale and the recovery of her patients. And personally, Florence's favorite flower was the foxglove. And Florence herself received a lovely bouquet every week from William Rathbone, the man who founded the Queen Victoria Jubilee Institute for Nurses. In 2020, during the pandemic, one of the most anticipated gardens for the Chelsea Flower Show was dedicated to Florence Nightingale. The year 2020 marked the 200th anniversary of her birth, and the garden was to be called the Florence Nightingale Garden, a celebration of modern nursing. Instead, the garden will make its debut during the 2021 Chelsea Flower Show. The garden will feature, quote, images from Florence Nightingale's pressed flower collection and echoes of her handwriting on timber walls. Today, Florence is remembered in the Florence Nightingale Museum in London, which celebrates the life and work of this incredible figure in nursing history. She's also honored with the Florence Nightingale Rose, a pretty pale pink, fragrant rose. And it was on this day, May 12th, in 1870, that Manitoba became a province of Canada. In 1906, the anemone patens, commonly known as the Prairie Crocus, was officially adopted as the floral emblem of Manitoba. The first prairie plant to bloom in the spring, the prairie crocus left an impression with early pioneers, and they called it a crocus because it reminded them of the early blooming crocus in Europe. However, the prairie crocus is not a crocus. It's an anemone, and as such, it's part of the buttercup family. In 1841, Nathaniel Hawthorne wrote to his future wife, saying, "There has been but one flower found in this vicinity, and that was an anemone, a poor, able, shivering little flower that had crept under a stone wall for shelter." In floriography, or the language of flowers, the prairie crocus is a symbol of liberty and freedom. It's time for today's Unearthed Words. Today's Unearthed Words come to us from the Canadian author Lucy Maud Montgomery. This is an excerpt from her book, Anne of Green Gables. Spring had come once more to Green Gables, the beautiful, capricious Canadian spring, lingering along through April and May in a succession of sweet, fresh, chilly days with pink sunsets and miracles of resurrection and growth. The maples in Lover's Lane were red-budded, and little curly ferns pushed up around the dryad's bubble. Away in the barrens, behind Mr. Silas Sloane's place, the mayflowers blossomed out, pink and white stars of sweetness under their brown leaves. All the schoolgirls and boys had one golden afternoon gathering them, coming home in the clear, echoing twilight with arms and basketfuls of flowery spoil. It's time to grow that garden library with today's book, Natural Affairs by Peter Bernhardt. This book came out in 1993, and the subtitle is A Botanist Looks at the Attachments Between Plants and People. When this book was written, Peter was a research assistant at the Missouri Botanical Garden. His book, Natural Affairs, is a mix of plant information and folklore and science over the course of human history. Peter highlights the various interactions in time between humans and plants. For instance, the naming of the passion vine comes from the Jesuit priests who felt that the vine's blossom showed the passion of Christ on the cross. Whether the relationships are highly coveted, as with saffron, the spice that was worth its weight in gold, or even mysterious, as with the Asian slipper orchid, plants, like people, want to survive and thrive. This book is 225 pages of the incredible relationships we have with plants, be they quirky, charming, delightful, or serious. You can get a copy of Natural Affairs by Peter Bernhardt and support the show using the Amazon link in today's show notes for around $2. Finally, here's something sweet to revive the little botanic spark in your heart. Today is National Limerick Day. Here's a garden limerick that was featured in the Central New Jersey Home News on May 19th in 1918. John soon had a fine garden growing and said, in a manner quite knowing. These beans and potatoes, peas, corn, and tomatoes will soon make a very fine showing. And here's one from 2020 from @PattySaurus on Twitter. There once was a gardener named Fred who was struggling with his raised beds. Nothing would grow. Then a friend said, you'd be better off fishing instead. Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener. And remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day. The Daily Gardener is produced in lovely Maple Grove and Wyoming, Minnesota. If you want to read today's show notes, just head on over to thedailygardener.org. And while you're there, be sure to sign up for my free Friday newsletter. And don't forget that you have a standing invitation to join the free Facebook group for listeners of the show. Just search for Daily Gardener Community the next time you're on Facebook and request to join. Last but not least, you can always get in touch by emailing me at jennifer@thedailygardener.org. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebling, and as always, have a great day in the garden, and we'll see you tomorrow.